Ross Miami McGill sits in a Beijing coffee shop, coordinating drug shipments while 700 million surveillance cameras watch every move. This is the same man whose network firebombed Scottish homes and terrorized families for months. Dubai arrested him, jailed him, then released him with one order: leave. Why isn't China stopping him? How is the British government still powerless after knowing everything? What is Cartel 3.0, and how will it change organized crime forever? Tons of cocaine flooding UK ports, billions in drug money corroding British communities, teenagers overdosing faster than hospitals can respond. Ross McGill doesn't need Glasgow streets anymore. He's become the UK's Pablo Escobar, but untouchable. He could have gone anywhere. Small African countries with no extradition treaties and weakened institutions. The Balkans, where corruption is a currency. South American jungle labs that the state can barely approach. Each alternative provided something: security, low cost, and local protection. However, each came with a cost: unstable infrastructure, unpredictable political swings, and a constant threat of betrayal. China offered something different, something strange. 700 million CCTV cameras watch every street, every train station, every coffee shop. Facial recognition algorithms scan crowds in real time. The Skynet system can identify a single face in a city of 20 million in under 3 minutes. For a fugitive, this should be a nightmare. It should be the last place on Earth to hide. But McGill isn't hiding, he's protected. Inside that protective bubble, he's building two parallel systems that turn traditional cartel operations into a logistics network. First, the money machine. Western money laundering costs 13 to 18% in fees and weeks of delay. McGill's mirror transactions cost 1 to 2% and settle in hours. A Glasgow dealer transfers funds to a shell company in Hong Kong. Simultaneously, a Medellin supplier receives payment from a different shell company in Shenzhen. The transactions appear legitimate on banking systems. No cash smuggling, no suspicious wires, just synchronized digital movement. Second, the chemical pipeline. 90% of the world's precursor chemicals for synthetic drugs originate in Chinese factories. These aren't illegal substances, they're industrial chemicals with legitimate uses. Fentanyl precursors, methamphetamine ingredients, cutting agents. McGill's network places orders through front companies that supply legitimate pharmaceutical manufacturers. The same factories producing legal medications also produce the building blocks for illegal drugs. Rotterdam customs officers can't stop what they don't know to look for. The containers arrive with proper documentation. The chemicals are legal until they're combined in a clandestine lab in Glasgow or Dublin. This is Cartel 3.0. Not territorial control, but supply chain management. McGill doesn't need soldiers on Scottish streets anymore. He needs accountants who understand Chinese banking regulations. He needs chemists who can order industrial quantities without raising flags. He needs logistics coordinators who can track shipping containers. The violence in Scotland was transitional, a power struggle to control distribution as he built this new system. Now that it's operational, the firebombings have stopped. The money flows digitally. The chemicals ship legally. The surveillance state protects him. Operation Portal hit hard. 57 suspects arrested between March and August. Firebombing cells dismantled, weapons seized, handguns, explosives, encrypted communication devices. But McGill remained in his Beijing coffee shop. The operation succeeded tactically while failing strategically. Police arrested foot soldiers, not architects. Liam McDermott, 25, became the first Tamojunto member jailed for using a metal detector to find a stashed gun. He never served time before. Now he's marked for death in prison because everybody knows he's been grafting for McGill. The foot soldier gets a target on his back while the boss coordinates from China. The National Crime Agency can trace McGill's digital footprint. They see the transactions, they map the network, but they cannot prosecute what they cannot physically access. A red notice sits in Interpol's database. China's law enforcement cooperation with the West is limited to formalities. That notice becomes digital toilet paper. McGill understands this. He travels from Beijing to Thailand to Hong Kong, contacting associates in Scotland, confident he won't be back in custody anytime soon. The NCA can watch his transactions appear on screens in real time. They can map his network, trace his money flows, identify his shell companies, but they cannot touch him. cannot arrest him, cannot execute the warrant. Other criminal groups are watching. Turkish heroin networks that once relied on Balkan routes now explore Chinese money brokers. British fraud rings that used offshore accounts shift to mirror transactions. Latin American cartels facing US pressure investigate Chinese chemical suppliers. The model replicates because it works. McGill didn't invent this system. He adapted it from Chinese organized crime groups who've operated this way for years. Now he's proven it works for Western criminals too. Cartel 3.0 operates like a multinational corporation, morning video conferences between time zones. Shared spreadsheets tracking shipments, algorithms optimizing container routes, shell companies registered in jurisdictions with no beneficial ownership requirements. The Lyons gang heads Ross Monahan and Eddie Lyons Jr. died in Fuengirola because they were still fighting over street corners while McGill built a logistics empire. The Daniel clan regained control of North Glasgow not through violence, but because their competitors couldn't adapt to this new model. Here's the problem law enforcement can't solve. They're hunting ghosts in a machine built by nations that profit from their failure. One Rotterdam customs officer stands helpless, staring at containers he can't open. He doesn't know which chemicals become drugs. He can't see money vanish in mirror transactions. He waits for someone to slip up in a transit country while McGill moves freely. This is the trap. Watch, wait, pray for mistakes. Meanwhile, McGill's new Cartel 3 becomes the blueprint for every criminal who wants to become untouchable. China's surveillance system doesn't just tolerate him, it protects him. The chemicals ship, the money flows. And Scotland's violence stopped because the war moved somewhere law enforcement can't follow. This isn't a Scottish problem anymore. It's a template, and every major criminal organization in the world is taking notes. The question isn't whether McGill will be caught. The question is how many will follow him before the West figures out how to police a crime that doesn't need streets anymore. Ross Miami McGill's journey reveals a new criminal equation. Geopolitical distance plus financial infrastructure equals immunity. But the equation has a third variable, harming the West. This isn't corruption, it's strategy. Every fentanyl precursor from Shenzhen, every dollar laundered through Hong Kong, every firebombing in Glasgow doesn't just enrich criminals, it destabilizes Western societies from within. The children in UK aren't collateral damage. They're the target. A generation growing up with fentanyl availability that rivals cannabis. Schools where drug violence is normalized. Communities where legitimate businesses can't compete with cash flush fronts. This is how you weaken a rival without firing a shot. You let their criminals do the work, and you provide the infrastructure. McGill understood this before Western intelligence did. A small-time thief from East Kilbride, facing a court case for organised crime, became the architect of a system that makes him untouchable. He didn't need to control Glasgow's streets, he needed to control the supply chain. Now he coordinates from Beijing while his foot soldiers take the fall in Scottish prisons. The Daniel clan regained territory not through force, but because their competitors couldn't adapt to a model where real power sits 7,000 miles away. The question isn't whether McGill will be caught. The question is how many will follow him before the West figures out that this isn't crime anymore, it's asymmetric warfare, and the battlefield is your neighborhood. If you want to understand how major powers quietly enable the next wave of organized crime, make sure to like and subscribe and watch the next investigation. Bye for now.